Hi, and welcome to the Higher Education Access Corner. I'm your host, Tiffanie Devan, and today I am super excited to have with me today Ms. Raeneice Taltoan-Reed. Ms. Raeneice Taltoan-Reed is someone that I am very personable with, and I'll share more details about that a little later. But she's joining us today for our Career Spotlight segment, and our spotlight today is on attorneys. So welcome, Ms. Taltoan-Reed, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So let's just get started. And why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself and your journey on being an attorney?
So I always wanted to be an attorney, I think since about like sixth grade or something. However, when I graduated from college, I graduated early and took a little break. I went into the financial sector. It just so happened that I got a good job out of college, working for an investment company, and got really interested in like investments and how to save money and what that looked like. And when the world went upside down with the financial mortgage markets, I was like, I need to go back to school. What does that look like? So after being, in corporate America for about 10 years, I transitioned and decided to go to law school. And even when it came to that transition, when I started law school, I did not want to practice law in the sense that I would work for a law firm. I thought I'd work for a financial services company. When I graduated, I wasn't going to take the bar, but then I was like, well, I don't want to find a job and then need to take the bar, so let me take the bar. Had an interview and someone said, you never worked for a law firm. Good skill set, but let's have you work for a law firm. There's things you learn in a law firm. Went to work for a law firm and ended up opening my own law firm. And so my journey as an attorney, the majority of my time has been practicing for myself, but it's more of a journey that I wrote myself, and I enjoyed the process.
And I love that. So now we're going to pull that apart a little bit more and share. So you said you kind of had an idea that you wanted to be an attorney when you were about 6 years old or so. And I can kind of remember that. So for our viewers, I was going to say it at the end, but I want to say it now. So I actually know Raeneice really well because she is my niece. So it's exciting to have her on there. It was exciting to see her grow. And I love her story, and I wanted our listeners to be able to hear it. And hopefully you're inspired by it. So anyone who has aspirations of becoming an attorney, a certified financial planner, which she also is, or even being a business owner, hopefully you will grab something because she is all of those things. So that is my proud auntie moment. But now I'm going to throw back on the hat of the host of the Higher Education Access Corner. So what inspired you? So as far back as you can think, what actually inspired you to want to become an attorney? Was it a person? Was it something that happened?
When I was younger, like elementary school, it was more about, wow, attorneys seemed like bosses, right? They were always dressed nice and they had money. Unfortunately, coming from my background, it was TV that you saw in the individuals. I think it was Claire Huxtable, right? On the Cosby Show. They were always so put together and was drastically different from my world. So it was something that attracted me. And I remember people would say, oh, you're so good with kids, you should be a teacher. And I'm like, teachers don't really do too well. So it was kind of the life that attracted me. It was like between a lawyer or a doctor. And I had the chance to kind of do some work, I guess, or, I was involved in something at Milton Hershey, or was it Penn State now, in Hershey, Pennsylvania, like their hospital program, and seeing the different departments. And there was a lot of blood. And I was like, yeah, no. And the lawyer, track just kind of fell together. Now, when I was in high school, I had an opportunity to have a mentor who was a lawyer who spent time with me. And that's really where I honed in on, okay, I do want this for myself.
That's pretty amazing. And I talk a lot of times when we're talking to students, we talk about a couple key things you talked about. Number one, you have to explore the different opportunities, and you did. You also have to see it. So whether it was a job shadowing experience or maybe a field trip or something like that, get out there to see what it's like, because you may realize you don't like it, right? So that was the medical arena for you. I also love that the certain type of lifestyle that you wanted to live. You kind of saying, nope, I like the glitz and the glam, and I like this. So I'm looking for a career that can help to support that. So again, being brutally honest with yourself and knowing who you are as a person also helps. as well. So I do like that for you. Um, when we're talking, now hopefully I want you to talk just a little bit about your high school journey, because you did do dual enrollment in high school. And because we talk about financial aid all the time, I love the opportunities that you had with dual enrollment, but it allows you to get a lot of those courses done a lot cheaper. So it helps to, you know, contain those costs as much. So for that student who might be interested in a dual enrollment opportunity, but maybe they're afraid, what advice would you have for them?
So if you're afraid, I say do it afraid. For me, myself, my parents forced me. I was against it. Luckily, some of my friends were in the dual enrollment program, so I wasn't alone. But I also felt like, well, I'm not going to be a normal high school student. However, my parents were like, you have this opportunity, you really have no choice. And I'm grateful. Like I would tell anybody to this day, I'm very grateful for that. I was
Mhm.
able to transfer those credits that I had from HAT into college, and I was able to graduate early. So I saved a year in financial aid, and I went to a historically Black private institution. So tuition, unfortunately, in those institutions are a little, steeper, and scholarships can
Mhm.
be thin. So with having the experience, I did get additional scholarships because it highlighted that I had the capability of being successful in college. But if you're
Mhm.
scared, and actually I hear my mentors tell me this today, do it anyway. So you
Yep.
do it scared. And if I can be someone who can say it is a great opportunity, all of my friends that did it with me are still my friends, and we're all doing great. We all took advantage of the opportunity, and we also pursued higher education. So do it anyway, would be my advice.
There you go. And I say that all the time. If you're afraid, that's okay. Do it anyway. Just do it afraid. So great advice. I thank you for that. Now, for our listeners who may not really know what an attorney does or what they do, what does an attorney do? What are some of the key duties, or maybe what's a day in the life of an attorney like?
It really differs depending on what practice area you're in. And what's interesting being an attorney now is that you will hear someone come, like I do primarily work with estates, like drafting wills and drafting end of life documents and emergency documents and handling individuals' affairs after they die. I do a little business law, but there's just that sector. And so I'm in that all day, but I get a call from someone like, hey, I'm having this issue with my employer, or, I have a traffic ticket or this. And it's like, okay, well, you might want to call, or let me send you my homeboy's information, because for me, I'm not well versed in that. I might get that ticket, priced higher just because I don't do traffic law every day. So I will say, when it comes to thinking about core duties that attorneys have, every attorney's, depending on their practice area, can differ. It also depends on what type of organization you work with. If you work for yourself, if you work for a corporation, or if you work for like a small business. I work for the courthouse here in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. So I'm an officer of the court, and I also have my own practice. So like I would say a day in my life is mainly about making sure I'm running the business, as well as making sure I'm, here for my clients. Every attorney has a client, if it's the business, the corporation, or the individual. And I would say when it
Mhm.
comes to thinking about that, that's what every attorney has. So it's about understanding what your client's goals and needs are. That need could be, I need to not go to jail. I need to get my children in a custody situation. Or, I need to make sure that my parent can afford a nursing home and not go bankrupt. So it can differ, but I would say, it's not every attorney's day in a life is the same. Even myself, I have three close friends. We all went to school together, practice for the bar together. We all own our own practices, and our days are different. One is in court all the time. Myself, I'm in court every once in a while. And even the cases that I take are starkly different than what what they do, because they primarily do personal injury and family law. So when it comes to thinking about a day in a life, and even exploring if you want to be an attorney, I think it's good to understand that there's different areas, and try to even maybe hone in on relationships, or get to know attorneys, or get to explore different areas, so that you see it can be different. but it would be something that maybe you would enjoy, and that would be the path that you would follow.
Okay. And in general, because you did say it's kind of like it depends on your skill set. It depends on, well, the area in which you want to go into. Generally speaking, what 2 or 3 soft skills or just skills, characteristics in general, do you think someone who aspires to be an attorney should have?
You should be a good writer. Writing is key. Even if you have staff who does your drafting of your documents for you, you have to be able to review them or even set them up for success to know what you expect, so that the courts convey, or whomever you're solving for, can convey what you're looking to accomplish. So writing skills is like that top tier. Speaking would be the second part of that. Being able to communicate, no matter whom you're communicating with, because sometimes your adversary may not have counsel. So you have to know how to be on their level if they're not a lawyer, as well as being able to speak to, other attorneys and judges who may have different backgrounds. So just speaking, being able to think off the cuff is a great skill. And I would say the last one is thinking outside of the box. When we think of attorneys, we think of court. We're always, going against someone else. And it's interesting, when I first started practicing, I would have clients who would say, well, whose side are you on, right? But I'm thinking outside of the box. I'm not just thinking about solving your problem. I need to think about what they're thinking, so that we can, we can be on top of things. So thinking outside of the box would be that third, skill set. I would say it's very important to hone in on. And that's almost like, how do you get there? It might be like doing puzzles and crossword, but just working your brain. It's not really something you learn day to day in school.
Do you think, now I'm speaking from knowing our family, do you think some of that came natural? Because when I think of our family, very outspoken people in our family, there's a lot of debate. We'll call it friendly banter or debate that tends to happen. So you kind of sometimes are got to be a little witty, got to be on your feet. And your thought process can be challenged. So if you have an idea, someone else may have an opposing idea in our own family. And it is okay to have differing opinions, but we may defend them. Do you think some of that just came natural for you?
I don't. I remember being in debate, and this is back in like college, debate teams, and just when it came to honing in our arguments, that was something I feel like I struggled with, like being able to see, okay, how do I get over this, even though this is the law? So when it came to, I don't know, maybe it's the technical piece that I feel like it didn't. Now, what I do think that I've gotten from my family is the confidence piece. So, once I get it and I do the research and I figure it out, or I consult with whomever, I'm able to stand there, and I may be nervous, but I am able to hone in on, this is the argument, this is where we're going. Or if I'm meeting with a new client, it may be a situation that I've never drafted for or solved for, but I'm going to have the confidence knowing that, even though I might not know all of it, my family has instilled in me a sense that I am who I am, and to be proud of that. And I believe that, when I speak to people who are shyer, or who are more, like they say, introverts, because I think I'm an introvert too. I think it's more about like your belief in yourself. But when I get to know you, you can't shut me up. But if I don't know you, I don't know you, right? So that's where I say the introverted part. It's like that confidence my family instilled in me. But not, I don't know if that's necessarily where I was successful when it comes to like arguing and presenting and things like that in my practice.
I think confidence does make a difference, though. So for that person who's not confident and didn't have it, or you didn't have the family person or anything like that, would you recommend maybe a mentor, or are there other resources they can go to kind of like hone in on not just the confidence, but any skill sets that you think that they might need, whether it's presenting? And I know in the past you talked about Toastmasters, and I'm not endorsing one thing over the other, but there things that someone could actually do just to hone in for themselves that you would say, hey, this might be helpful?
When you were asking that question before you said Toastmasters, I was thinking Toastmasters.
Okay.
So that helped me tremendously. And I've actually been thinking about, because it's been since pre-COVID, since I was engaged. And so Toastmasters helped thinking off the cuff because the goal of Toastmasters is to help you with public speaking, but public speaking also goes over in different areas of your career. Even if it is a one-on-one conversation, it helps you with those skills. I would say a mentor, definitely. My mentor, who was someone who was already in practice, but we went to law school together. So when it came to starting my practice, he was like this go-to person. And something that he said to me, and I tell people this all the time, a lot of times when we're trying to meet people, we have this goal of, I want this job or I want this result. So try not to hone in on the result, but remember, everybody needs to know you. So it's not a matter of you need to know me because I'm a lawyer. You just need to know me and I need to know you. And when you take that extra weight off of that end goal, you're authentically yourself and it shines through. I get calls from people who met me, my practice started in like 2016, 2017, and they'll tell me a story and they're like, they remember me and I have a hard time remembering them, just because of where life has taken me. But I was that person who would go to the networking events and I wouldn't wear the I am the lawyer on my chest. I would genuinely get to know people and what they were doing. And they, even for myself, when it came to my story, I would never lead with, I am a lawyer who. It was like, this is what I saw for my clients. And if I were to say anything in regards to that skill set, it's everybody needs to know you and everybody puts on their clothes just like you put on clothes, So if you think of it of interacting, and even when it comes to presenting in a judge. Now, in the courtroom, I do get nervous, especially if it's a judge I've never been in front of or a client situation I've never handled before. However, I have to remember they were a lawyer like me before, they put their pants or their skirt, dress, whatever on just like I would. So when you take the height, I guess the pressure off and just break it down, it makes it easier. And a mentor taught me that.
Very good advice. I like that. So hopefully everyone is listening in on that because I think you're dropping some good gems here. Just wondering, what's maybe like throughout your span of your career, what have been maybe some highlights, some lowlights, like a best part of your day, maybe a worst part, something that surprised you about going into this field of study?
So, I mean, the highlights of being a lawyer are like the clients who want to give me a hug, or, the clients who keep in touch and they're like, oh, I'm having a grandbaby, or, just keep letting you know about their life. That means the world of difference. The challenges for me are more like the business owner challenges, in the sense that, like, you got to make a refund because they're not happy, right? And why aren't they happy? Because I didn't have systems in place. So I've had growing pains in the sense like, okay, I'm going through this in life, but I have to remember a business has other employees and it's not just on me. And I think as a solo attorney, we weren't, always taught how to run a business. So that's been my challenge. But in thinking about lawyer life or even kind of merging my corporate life, I think it was more just growing pains and knowing, okay, thinking more of, I guess, so I am very strategic, like big picture, but when it comes down to the little things, it's the hardest. And until I started taking tests to understand like my personality and my skill sets and to really take some self-awareness, did I know that? And that would be the challenges, like things were slipping through. And it was more like, well, I had to understand my skill set so that I could get my direct reports or delegate appropriately. And this I've learned in practice and in corporate America. And one thing that I do appreciate, I recently learned from one of young ladies that just started with my office, is a lot of schools are taking time to say, well, this is who you are. You should look at this type of career. And back in the day when I was in school, or I don't know if it's back in the day or just maybe the school system that I went through, but I didn't have those resources. So I would say self-awareness helped and has made those darker moments, come to light. And of course, when I've lost cases, those aren't the best feelings. But what I appreciate
No one wants that.
is 98% of the time my clients are like, but you did your best. Or, but you could tell the judge was being unfair. Or, there's something else. So that gives me comfort. But of course, that's a low. So I would say overall, those are some highs and lows, and it's been about business ownership and self-awareness overall.
And then for the ownership piece and the entrepreneurial spirit, you did kind of talk about how you managed to get into that. Are you happy with that choice, or do you think you'll ever have regrets about not going back into the corporate world? Although you always have that opportunity to do it, but do you like having done this at the time period in which you did it?
I love having the opportunities who have done it. I would be a liar if I said I don't think about it or that I didn't just apply for a corporate job recently, because entrepreneurship gets hard, especially that consistent income is what I think about a lot of times with entrepreneurship. I don't have any regrets about doing it. When I think of like regrets, I hate that word. I don't know why. It sounds so negative, but like if there was anything that I would change is maybe invested in like coaches earlier in my career, versus waiting until, or earlier in my practice versus waiting until later. But as far as like entrepreneurship and even the growing pains that I've had, I've loved them. I remember this might have been about 2 years ago, after some things I had went through were going on, and there was a large East Coast firm wanting to buy out my firm. They were willing to take on my employees and everything. And I sat and thought about it and was like, I don't want to work for another firm. Like, if I'm doing the same thing, like, what's the point? I can't bring to life what I bring to this practice. But when I think of like working corporate, I don't necessarily want to work in this same space. It's like I want to use my skill sets in a way, of course, that I can monetize, but not in the same interaction of where I am. So what I appreciate about this journey is like it brings so many pieces of your skills, of your experience, and even the lifestyle that you want together. Because I don't want to work for a firm where I have to bill hours and I have to be tied to a desk and I can't just pop on a podcast with my aunt.
There you go. So I love it even more so because of that. But I love that you were able to kind of like make the call, choose your do what you want to do, and you're doing it your way. And I think that's the beauty of you having your own practice. You get to decide how it's done, what works for you, and you can pivot anytime that it doesn't. Something's not going well, and you don't give up. So you're not a quitter at it. You're just saying, hey, let's make my way. And I think you're thriving and you're doing a good job at it. For that student, so we talk to students all the time here, and sometimes they have no idea what they want to do. Any word of advice for that person who's just still trying to find a job or a career that they can be passionate about and and feel purposeful? Any advice for them?
I think just do it. Like take something, and if the path is there to do it, don't not do something because you're confused and there's so many choices. I think it was TD Jakes who mentioned that a lot of times we don't move forward with decisions, and he was speaking about his child, one of his children, who went, I think it was a decision of, I'm not sure which college I want to go to, but it was like, but you have to go. So if it doesn't work out, what's wrong with it not working out and pivoting, right? And I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that we have to make this core decision now, and this has to be the life decision for forever. However, if you're a student, even if you're 18 or you're non-traditional and you're an older student, know that it's not the end all be all. I myself, when I was in corporate America, I never worked for a job more than 2 years. So my practice is the longest job that I've ever had. I've had my practice, I guess, 8 or 9 years. But I bring that up to say it is okay to try it, not like it, and move on. But I think the key piece that a lot of times we don't hear as younger folks, and I say this tying into younger folks that I know, is how do we have a plan for that? So that plan might look like, well, I'm going to try this, but let me also have a part-time job, or let me make sure I'm still saving money, and not just waiting for my parents to hand out something. So it's all about just trying. If you don't know what you want to do, maybe take some tests to understand, well, these are the skills that I have. Maybe I would do well in this type of a situation. So use your resources, your counselors at school, and any other resources that you may have in your community to help you explore like what makes sense for you. And then there's always pray.
Sounds good. So once they,
Talk about that. So
you can, yeah, you can speak on anything that you want to speak on. I welcome it. Because that's a big piece for many of us. The other part, you kind of talked about that piece. So now let's transition just a little bit. So for that student, and you can share your personal experience or experiences of those that you may know, who's now trying to find that right fit for a school, because it's fall college fair season right now. For those who are doing homecomings and things like that, it's also homecoming season. So it's a whole lot of richness and fun and love about going back as an alumni, but choosing that right fit. So a lot of times we're talking to those students, how do you find the right fit? How did you know your alma mater was the right fit for you? Because you're young, you're trying to figure it all out. What key factors? Was it size, location? Was it expenses? Was it, organizations?
it's interesting because I just talked about the Cosby Show earlier.
Mhm.
What was it? A Different World was a big play in I wanted to go to a historically Black school, and that's my undergrad was Johnson C. Smith, which is a HBCU. So it was important to me. Now, Johnson C. Smith was not my first choice. I just knew I was going to Spelman. However, as I had the opportunity to do the dual enrollment and just going through different programs, I did realize I wanted a school that was a smaller school and that did not have the classes where my teachers would not know me. And it's interesting, even my first year, it was one class I overslept for finals, and my professor called me and allowed me to take my final, which I
Wow.
attribute to, I am so glad I went to a smaller institution. I'm pretty sure at a larger institution, I would have just been a number. Now, law school was different, but for college, it was about, okay, I wanted students who looked like me and had similar experiences to me. In the dual enrollment program, I was, I was the minority. So that was something I honed in on early. So I wanted to go to an HBCU. I wanted to go to a school where there were a smaller class size. And then I would say the last piece was money. I didn't come from parents who were able to write a check. My parents said, you're smart enough to go to college, but you got to figure it out. And so for me, it was also about where am I getting the scholarships from? So I didn't only make the decision on where I wanted to go based on, oh, they have this, they have that. It's going to be this type of styles. This is the school that gave me, the HBCU that gave me the largest amount of money. And I got to celebrate homecoming this weekend, and going to Johnson C. Smith was the best decision ever. So that's my journey.
Nice. And I love to hear those stories, especially for someone when I know they enjoyed their college experience, because sometimes you hear the other side. And what they didn't do is take the time to really get to know what they needed. Like you said, you needed a one where there was kind of like the professor to student ratio was much smaller. They will know whether you're there or you're not there. You're not just a number. And you chose a school who cares. So someone to have a professor call and say, hey, where you at? They noticed that you weren't there. And I think that you get that love sometimes at an HBCU or smaller school that is out there. Cost, of course, we always talk about course because it has to make sense financially. So it has to be a good financial fit. You don't want to break the bank going to a school that you just say, hey, this is a great and amazing school, when you can get everything that you still need and sometimes more at a different, less pricier school that is out there. So thanks for sharing that piece too. And so some of my questions are kind of calculated because I already know some of your experiences, but I think they're so important and vital to share with others. I think you're a great role model, great mentor for many that are out there. You're like, whoa, my aunt said that. Oh, I mean that. But I think it's nice to be shouted out for everyone else to hear it and to see it. Also, super proud of you and everything that you're doing. Can't wait to see what is next in store for you. I'm super glad that you joined me on the podcast today. Any last parting words for any of our viewers or listeners?
So I would say, in regards to the conversation today, like, I've got to tell you to do it scared. If you're early in your career or non-traditional, take the step. Of course, you want to go with, some people call it your North Star, your intuition, trust yourself. And even if you do make a mistake, do not be hard on yourself. Know that you can still pick up and go on the next step. And also, make sure you're honing into what's important to you. If it's prayer, reflecting, journaling, whatever that looks like, make sure you're taking that time so that you're not making the decisions based on what others want for you. Because even as young people, sometimes it's like, oh, but my parents want, and that's good. If it was my dad's choice, I would have went to college in Pennsylvania. And, however, I know my dad was proud of my choice, but I had to express to him, this is why. And so, even in that case, you want to know what's important to you and what works for you so you're able to convey that respectfully. So those would be my last words.
And I love them. And I think there's a consistent message that I really love, and hopefully everyone picked up on, was kind of like, get to know yourself, know who you are, trust your gut or your instinct, and follow that path. Also, you mentioned earlier before, like, it is okay if you get off from the path. Like, you know what, some things happen and didn't quite work out, but you don't give up. So I got that out of it too. So I absolutely love that you were sharing. I'm grateful that you came on this morning and you're talking to everyone about what it takes to be an attorney. And also, I just wanted to shout out also that you're a certified financial planner as well. And we talked about that briefly, but for those who wanted to go into being a certified financial planner, we'll have more specifics on that at another time. However, a lot of the things that you talked about really apply for any profession that are out there. So again, I thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And for those of you who are tuning in, thanks again for listening to the Higher Education Access Corner, and we'll see you soon.